1, 2, 2, 3. 1, 2, 2, 3. In the place to be. In the place.
Mic check.
Why are you guys here?
We're here to save St. Vincent's Hospital. We live in the neighborhood and I've volunteered there for 8 years. They saved my husband's life 17 years ago. And we need a hospital here, not an urgent care. We don't have any of that in the neighborhood. We had 9/11. These are the people who saved our
Hi, my name is Susanna B. Troy. Twice I've had stitches sewn up in the emergency room. I ran right here to St. Vincent's. We need a hospital here. We're making progress. What Yetta Curlin is asking is that we stay united. If we're going to get any kind of results, we have to be united. So I'm asking everyone, please stick together and demand that we get a hospital here. Thank you.
This hospital saved my daughter's life. Some very brilliant and courageous doctors and staff people saved her life. And she's not the only one. I see some of the police officers around here. Many police officers' lives were saved. This is not like a tent being yanked out of a compound in a tribe. This is the campfire going out. And this is serious moonlight. This is a terrible thing that's happening. And we need to get a hospital back in this area for many reasons. Edna St. Vincent Millay was named that name by her father because this hospital saved her brother's life, his brother's life. So he named her Edna St. Vincent Millay. This place goes way back, and this is a real tragedy if we can't manage to reopen a hospital here in some form. And I speak for thousands of people who aren't here. You know, I'm like the canary in the cage, really. Anyway.
Well, what's your name, sir?
My name is Joe Butler. I'm a rock and roll singer in the 60s rock and roll band called the Lovin' Spoonful.
They have, like I said, have to apply application.
Welcome to the rally for a new village hospital, the 1-year anniversary of the closing of St. Vincent. Thank you all so much for coming out. My name is Marti Cummings, and I'm the founder of Broadway Speaks Out, and I'm here to tell you your uptown brothers and sisters in the Broadway community are here with you fighting for a hospital. I believe it's not only a hospital that has closed down, but look around you. You see stores and restaurants that have closed. An entire neighborhood is affected by this building here. So we need to stick together to bring this, and I am proud and honored to welcome your MC for today, Paul Newell.
How great is Marty? So, first of all, thank you everybody, and welcome to the rally to demand a hospital. A year ago today, the reputation of this city was gravely damaged when this hospital was closed. There's been a lot of things on offer. There's been a lot of things, mailers sent around. The important thing to know, can we turn up the sound here? Hold on. Sound on the mic. Thank you. Better? See, if we get together, we can improve things. There's been a lot of mailers sent around. There's been court decisions. An important thing to note here is that it is not a done deal. They're not going to be able to do what they want without our community, our state, and our city's approval, and they're not going to get that approval without a hospital. We're going to start off now. I'm going to introduce a woman who was an incredible part of this institution, St. Vincent's Hospital, for how long? 25 years. Somebody who cared for this community, somebody who's been a passionate part of this struggle, Ms. Eileen Dunn.
Can ABC hear me? I hope the media can hear us, because you haven't been hearing us, media. Okay, except I can't include the Westview in that. They've been willing to hear both sides of the story, and they've been willing to tell the truth. And they need to be cheered for that, so let's hear it for the Westview. Okay, now I have a bit of a downer here, and I wasn't expecting this. I got handed this by one of our really wonderful New York City policemen. Sandra Truman was supposed to speak today. She just got hit by a car down there. She's on the way to the hospital. God only knows what hospital. It depends if you're a trauma, not a trauma, or whether you're male, female, whatever you are, it depends on where you go. Okay? I think they handed me her speech. I'd like to just read a little bit of it. A few years ago, I did two things I now regret. The first thing was signing a petition against the high-rise over the O2 building with a full-service hospital under it. Now I'm getting the high-rise but no full-service hospital. The second thing I regret is changing my voter registration to better support my local politicians. They did not support us in saving St. Vincent's, choosing instead to support their real estate contributions. If they do not support us in getting the full-service hospital originally offered, they should not get our support or votes from us. Okay, the question I get asked the most by people, how do you feel after a year? How do you feel? Angry? Mad? Okay, a lot of emotion.
Away from us to stop running for third term.
Thank you.
Okay, this gentleman's very, very angry at Bloomberg. Is there anybody else out there that's angry at Bloomberg? Let him know that. Let him know that. How about Christine Quinn? Anybody angry out there at Christine Quinn? How about Tom Dwayne? Dick Gottfried. Okay, I'm angry, but I have to tell you the emotion that really takes my heart is sadness. Sadness that we've been duped by everybody in this city that has anything to do with what we want to get done. I was duped as president of the union here by the administration. I was lied to on many different levels. And I'm very, very sad on many different levels. The thing I'm the most sad about is I'm looking out at wonderful, wonderful people, some of you that have been my patients, that now don't have a hospital to go to, that are being offered an emergency room. What the hell of good is an emergency room without a hospital? So I'm not giving up this struggle, folks. And I really hope that, I know I'm speaking to people that are here, but what we need you to do is to grab a couple of friends and don't give up the struggle. Don't let these people win. Struggle like you did back in the 60s, back in the 70s. Struggle like we did against Vietnam. The next thing I'm really sad about is the lack of integrity in this city. Let me tell you, every single New York City elected official was invited here today. They are down in Tribeca at 12 noon for a rally down there. It is a short taxi cab ride to 12th and 7th. Do you see anybody? If you're here and you're an elected official, raise your hand, please, so we can bring you up on the podium. We have been promised meetings. We have been promised we'll see you after the election. We have been promised many things. None of it has come to the truth. Totally deceived. And I have to tell you, the two I'm the saddest about is Tom Dwayne and Dick Gottfried. They live in this town. They were the chair people of the health committee when this hospital went down. They will tell you that they didn't know that we were in financial distress. That's a lie. It's a lie. I got it from the liars who told me that they know, so maybe they're lying too, but I doubt it. So please, stay in the struggle with us. This is not a done deal. And if you hear anything negative about this coalition, please give one of us a call, because they've been spreading some horrible rumors around town about us. All we're in this for is to get a full-service hospital. Stay with us on Facebook, stay involved, and know that I really love every single one of you that are here today. And I wish that I was upstairs on 14 West tonight taking care of you. So please stay in the struggle. Thank you.
That was Eileen Dunn, registered nurse at this hospital for 25 years. Just want to let people know, I grew up here on 10th Street, but right now I live in Lower East Side, Chinatown. And why am I here helping out? To make sure that we demand a hospital here? Because this is a citywide issue. This hospital served so much of this city in and of itself, 40% Medicaid patients, I believe. But this is also not just an issue right here. This is not just about St. Vincent's Hospital. This is about the future of healthcare in New York City and indeed nationally. Dr. Calvin just gave me a list of some hospitals that have closed in the last, how many years? In the last 10 years. Beth Israel's Singer Division shut down. Brooklyn Hospital's Caledonian Division. Interfaith Medical Center's Brooklyn Jewish Division shut down. Our Lady of Mercy Medical Center's Florence Duoso Division. Island University's Concord Division shut down. St. Joseph's Hospital, St. Joseph's St. Mary's Brooklyn Hospital. Cabrini Medical Center. St. Mary Immaculate, St. John's Queens Hospital, Parkway Hospital. This is a strategy to privatize healthcare, to make healthcare inaccessible for New York's communities. St. Vincent's Midtown Hospital shut down, and Victory Memorial Hospital shut down, and St. Vincent's Catholic Medical Center of Manhattan shut down. This is a strategy. They want more condominiums and less hospitals. And don't think it's stopping here. And don't think it's stopping here. Some of the hospitals that are in grave risk of closing right now, the Brooklyn Center Hospital, Brookdale Hospital, Interfaith Hospital, Kingsbrook Hospital, Wyckoff Hospital, Jamaica Hospital, Peninsula Hospital, Westchester Square, St. Barnabas. This is a crisis in our community, and we will demand a hospital. We will demand health care. Somebody who knows more than most about how important St. Vincent's was and is to this community, somebody who served for how many years? Over 30 years as a doctor treating people in this community, at this hospital, somebody who has been an integral part of the Coalition for a New Village Hospital is Dr. David Kaufman, and it's my honor to present him to you today.
Hi. Why are we here? All right. We're also here to celebrate, honor a very sad thing. It's 1 year this great place closed. Luckily, very luckily, it's a gorgeous day. Very reassuring to know the bankruptcy court and the Rudins can't control the weather. They can't fix that. So, thanks. What I want to talk about today, I'm going to cover a lot of numbers that can rule our lives and ruin our lives. I want to emphasize that every statistic I'm going to give you has come from the U.S. Census, the DOH, or North Shore LIJ's research group. These are facts that can tell you many stories, and numbers can have great but very simple power, and they can speak clear truth. So it's a lot of numbers. Stay with me on this and try to remember them, and I'll keep coming back to them because they're going to tell a very sad and powerful story. 365 days ago, Greenwich Village and the entire Lower West Side was plunged into a health crisis. For 52 weeks, we have had no easily accessible emergency services, no trauma services, no hospital beds, and none of the broad range of emergency surgical, medical, psychiatric, and ambulatory care services that St. Vincent's provided to all of those in need. Over the last 12 months, the 61,394 people that previously were cared for in this emergency room have had to go somewhere else. 61,000 people. They've had to travel through traffic 1 to 5 miles in trips that take 20 to 60 minutes to get emergency services. Not just for a broken finger or a scratch, for emergency services. And then when they get to the hospital, they've been forced to wait an average of 5 hours before they get seen and cared for. And then, if they are so sick they need to be admitted, they have to wait 12 to 24 hours to get a bed. There are no beds. I'm a doctor. I go to Beth Israel, very good hospital. This is not a criticism of BI. I routinely have patients staying 24 hours in pain on bad stretchers waiting for beds. How many people never even made it to the ER? How many suffered in pain while waiting for care? And how many had more damage to their hearts or their brains or their bodies because of these delays in transport and triage and management? And how many do you think might have died? Last year, again, these are statistics straight, not made up by me, but straight out of the literature, okay? Last year, 70% of the patients admitted to St. Vincent's Hospital came through this emergency room. That means that of the 100% that came in, of all the admissions in the hospital, 70% were from the emergency room. Let me be really clear, crystal clear. That means in 2009, an amazing, incredible 13,572 people were so sick, so acutely ill that they required immediate admission for treatment of their heart attacks, strokes, pneumonias, perforated organs, trauma, whatever. What has happened? I ask you, what do you think has happened to those 13,572 people over the last 52 weeks? Does anybody really know? In 2009, St. Vincent's Hospital admitted a total of 19,388 patients. In that same year, 2009, St. Vincent's had an average daily census, that means every single day of the year, an average census of 340 patients sleeping and sitting in hospital beds. Those are 340 people from our community that were sick enough to be hospitalized every single day of the year. Where have all those patients gone? How far have they had to travel? How badly has their care been delayed and disrupted? I don't know. Of course, the New York State Department of Health, the North Shore LIJ organization, the Rudin organization, and our elected politicians that Eileen referred to, Cuomo, Bloomberg, Duane, Gottfried, Quinn, and the rest, our elected leaders supposedly responsible for our community's health and welfare. That is part of their job, I think, right? Right? Of course, they don't have any of those answers, nor will they even accept those questions. Suddenly, their statistics machine is broken, busted, kaput, it does not work. And their multi-million-dollar PR operations are suddenly eerily silent. No answers, nothing. What has happened? This kills me. What has happened to the concept of holding officials, whether they are appointed, elected, corporate, nonprofit? What has happened to the need for responsibility and accountability? Instead of answers, our community has been supremely, thank you. Instead of answers, instead of getting those answers to some of those questions, our community, the people standing here and all around us, have been supremely insulted. These people are offering us an urgent care center. Over there, they're going to put an urgent care center, a doc in the box on steroids, a turbocharged clinic. They further, get this, they further insult us by calling it an emergency room. And then, when we say anything, they talk to us like we are ill-mannered children and insist that we are lucky even to get this, and that it's better than nothing. They've actually said that. Isn't it better than nothing? All right. I'm not going to spend more time going through why it's no good and why they're wrong, all the ways they are deceiving us, and all of the life-threatening risks of this generous offer of theirs. Read the flyers that we've given out and read Westview. Read it. And when you do, think about this. Can their comprehensive care center, this freestanding emergency room that they think will work for us, can it treat 61,394 people a year? Can it house in beds 19,388 people sick enough? Can it deliver the critical care to the 13,572 that had to be admitted from that emergency room? Where are all those people going to go? I'm not asking rhetorical questions. These are not meant to be melodramatic. I really mean this, all right? These are life and death questions, and the lack of answers, the utter disregard of these facts puts my life and all of yours and all of our neighbors in jeopardy. All right, I'm going to move on to a different set of numbers. Are you ready? Okay. According to the data collected by North Shore LIJ, the Lower West Side, where we all live, and what is also called the primary service area for this hospital, has a population of 385,000 people. And at the time the hospital closed, St. Vincent's closed, it had about 380 operational beds. I want you to try to remember those numbers and keep in mind, I'm not even including the 500,000 or more tourists and commuters that come here every single day. Okay, 385,000 people. All right, we're going to take a ride now. We're going to go on a 5-mile trip, and we're going to go uptown to the Upper East Side and to East Harlem. That's an area geographically defined by the Harlem River, the East River, 59th Street, and 5th Avenue. Okay, can you picture it? The population, this is from the US Census now, not me, I'm not making this up. The population of those two communities totals 325,286 people in the 2009 census. 2000 census, so it's even more now. 60,000 people less than the Lower West Side. What do all those people do for their health care? Where do they go when they have an emergency or they're sick or they need a bed or a doctor in an emergency? What are their resources? Okay, hold on to your hats and try not to faint as I read this to you. This is straight off the internet, straight off each hospital's website, okay? New York Presbyterian Cornell Weill Hospital, 867 beds and a full-service emergency room. Mount Sinai Hospital, 1,171 beds and a full-service emergency room. Memorial Sloan Kettering, a cancer hospital but still a general hospital with 437 beds and a full-service emergency room. Metropolitan Hospital, part of this city's system. 341 beds. And what do you think it has with those beds? A full service emergency room. And then there's Hospital for Special Surgery, which is mostly for orthopedic problems. 172 beds and limited services, emergency services. And finally, what's the last hospital? Anyone know? The last but not least is Lenox Hill Hospital, North Shore LIJ's latest purchase, latest acquisition, with 652 beds and a full service emergency room. All right, let's do the numbers now. Can anyone guess how many beds that adds up to? I'm not making this up, guys. 3,940 beds for 325,286 people, which works out to 1 bed for every 82 people living up there. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. And 5 full-service emergency rooms for that population. With all the bells, those emergency rooms have all the bells and the whistles and the medical and surgical backup to do the job right. Not. What do we have down here? Nothing. Nothing. That is right. We have how many beds? 0. 0 beds for how many people? 385,000, not counting those poor tourists and commuters. Okay? I want to make sure you got it. I think you did. It's 0 beds per 385,000 compared to 1 bed for every 82 people. In some circles, that would be called criminal policy and planning. And I suspect that most third world countries around the world have a better ratio than 0 per 385,000. All right, getting near the finish here. So what are we going to do? What can be done? Here's the deal. We're up against a government mindset at the New York State level that insists that the problem for healthcare in New York State is that we have too many beds. And the only way we will solve our financial crisis is to close beds in hospitals. Let's just assume, for the sake of discussion, let's assume that the DOH is correct. I won't argue the point, although I don't necessarily agree. The question really is, how do they implement this decision of theirs? How do they get rid of beds? It's a fair question. One would think experts like this would approach the challenge rationally and carefully. But an astonishing fact, and it continues to astonish me. The astonishing fact is they do not do that. They give no thought to the distribution of beds. They readily admit this. No thought to it. All they care about is shutting them down. Community needs, beds per person ratio, social economic needs, all totally irrelevant. How else explain the behavior of our city and state officials, those guardians of yours and my health? How else explain their decision to leave 385,000 of us with no hospital, no emergency room? While 5 miles north of here, there are 4,000 beds for 60,000 less people. So here's my proposal. I'm going to try to get positive now, okay? Let's all get rational. Let's act responsibly. Let's plan intelligently. And let's all work together. Together. Our community, the Rudens, North Shore LIJ, and even our elected and appointed officials. And let's solve this absurd situation so that we all win. North Shore LIJ has just taken over Lenox Hill Hospital in a community that, as I have just described, is drowning in beds. The DOH would be absolutely correct, in fact, I'd be the first to shout it out, and I am, that the Upper East Side is overbedded. There are too many beds. That situation is not financially sensible or sustainable. And I will tell you, Lenox Hill, even with the marketing might and amazing deep pockets of LIJ, North Shore LIJ, will be hard-pressed to compete with Sinai and Cornell, Memorial, and Special Surgery. They will not succeed. But hey, look around you. What do we have here? We have behind me a large empty hospital. And across the street, 160,000 square feet of empty space. And all around me, what's that number we have? 385,000 people with no hospital services and no emergency rooms. So I say to LIJ, to North Shore LIJ, come on down. Just come on down here. Move the entire Lenox Hill Hospital downtown. Bring the doctors. Bring the doctors, many of whom actually are St. Vincent's doctors. They've recruited dozens of our staff. They're the best critical care team in the city, as far as I'm concerned. Bring them down here. Bring the nurses. Bring the support staff. Bring the fancy equipment. Bring it all. And we will fill your beds. Not that we want to be in a hospital, but we need a hospital. We'll even be getting, and in exchange, let the Rudens. All right. In exchange for Lenox coming down here, let the Rudens move uptown. Right, which is where they live. Let them build their condos uptown. I mean, do you guys know where Lenox Hill is? Park Avenue and 76th Street. It doesn't get more prime than that, okay? And if North Shore LIJ doesn't need the entire campus to do this, well, they can just throw the Rudens another building or two if we need to make this work out. Just think about it. Just think about it. At a minimum, this is a bed-neutral proposal. Even the DOH can't object. But North Shore probably doesn't even need 650 beds here. We could do this for 400. So we come out heroes. 250 beds knocked off. Hooray! Listen, I'm not a banker or a mogul, but I suspect the dollars work out. Everybody wins. Nobody loses their job. No Lenox Hill staff lose their job. The businesses around here in this ghost town would reopen. And we, the people, we would get our healthcare crisis resolved with the opening of a new world-class full-service hospital emergency room. Just think of the goodwill generated. Think of the fundraising opportunities, and imagine restoration of healthcare for 385,000 people. I'm telling you, everybody wins, nobody loses. So let's all work together and create the new World Trade Center Memorial Hospital. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kaufman. I suspect our next speaker does not need too much introduction. She's been several decade resident of this neighborhood. She is one of the most tireless and fearless activists I know. She is a leader of this community. She is a leader of this coalition. She is the lead counsel in our lawsuits in both state and U.S. bankruptcy court for the Coalition for a New Village Hospital. She is someone I am very, very proud to call my friend, someone I admire greatly. I want to present to you Ms. Yetta Kurland. And her assistant.
What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? When do we want it? Mr. Rudin, can you hear us? What do we want? What do we deserve? When do we want it? No condo! 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 All right. Thank you, guys. I'm filled with both anger and incredible love as I look through this crowd of hundreds of people. Thank you for coming out for your family, for yourselves, and for your community time after time after time, and no one's listening. Even when no one listens, you guys listen and you get out here. Are we going away? No! 1 year, and still nothing. No urgent care center, no freestanding, what do they call it now? It's not an urgent care center, it's a comprehensive care complex. And no hospital saving our lives. 1 year of no hospitals for our community. Is this acceptable? No! I can't hear you. Is this acceptable? No! Is this how a civilized society treats its people? 1 year we've been fighting for something we should have never had to fight for without the help of those who should have been here to help us. But no matter what they tell you, it is not a done deal. They have been selling their done deal plan since before this hospital ever closed. Are we buying it? No. Because what do we need? And when do we need it? Now. Are we going away? No. We are reasonable people. But we are in a health crisis here on the Lower West Side of Manhattan, and no one is listening to us. We are fighting for our community, but we are fighting for every single other community that is in fear of losing public health. And what do we all need? And when do we need it? It is the same chant we've been chanting since April 30th, 2010. It's the same chant we're going to continue to chant until we get a hospital. We will work with the Rudin Development Corporation, won't we? Yes. What do we do? But what do we get? What do we get out of that? A hospital. I want to dispel a couple of myths. Again, thank you. Thank you, my community, for coming out today against all of the whisper campaigns and all of the astroturfing with fake coalitions pretending that the hospital is not necessary and that our community, in fact, wants a standalone, unregulated, dangerous, untested, never before been seen standalone. What in the world does that mean? Emergency room. Thank you for coming out. Now, guess how we're all spending our summer together? We're going to get a hospital. I want to dispel a couple of rumors, though, a couple of myths. People have come up to me, and I just want to say thank you to Jane Krasinski, to Angela Jones, to Jim Forat, to all of the incredible people, Pamela LeBron, everyone who's been coming out, Sylvia Sanza, so many people coming out, putting up posters that get ripped down, making phone calls, showing up, all of the people who've been so great in this. Angela, I see you out there as well. Thank you. Now I need each one of you to join our efforts. And when you hear people telling you that you don't want to push it too hard, that if you ask for a hospital, you might not get anything at all, listen to me. Out of all the laws that have been broken in the closing of this 160-year-old institution, let me tell you something. When the Rudins or whoever wants to purchase and develop this property, if they purchase a 501c3, they must purchase with it and acquire with it the charitable mission of that 501c3. Now, is that charitable mission condominiums or hospitals? So do not be afraid to need a hospital. Do not be intimidated into accepting something that will only put us in a worse situation, and feel free in this democratic, free society to show up time and time again, to call and reach out to your elected officials, to convene with your neighbors and friends, and to keep asking for a basic, simple thing. Running water, schools, hospitals. These are not unreasonable things for our community to ask for, are they? No. One more thing I want to say to you, and I want to turn it over because there's a bunch of other wonderful speakers. We are circulating a petition to the Attorney General, General Eric Schneiderman, who, when he ran for Attorney General just last year, took a very powerful and principled position to stand with us and to stand with the coalition, saying very clearly that he believed that there needed to be a hospital here at the site of St. Vincent's and that he would help be a proponent for that. And this Attorney General Schneiderman is a very, very critical, crucial time, because The Rudins have gotten permission from the bankruptcy court to proceed with the development of this building and these buildings, but they still have many more steps to get actual approval. And they need to submit that plan to the Attorney General's office. And we are calling on the Attorney General to do the right thing, to stand up and take advantage of that campaign promise and to ensure that this development does not go forward without a hospital. Are you guys with me? Yes. I want 10,000 petitions. Will you help me get them? Yes. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Keep showing up. We're going to keep being out here all summer long. I'll be out at Abington Square and in Chelsea and Penn South and everywhere else. And I'll stand with each and every one of you. Let's get a hospital back for our community. Thank you. I love you back.
So it's important to note that we are not just looking back at what went wrong and why this was closed, but we are looking forward to get a hospital for our community because we have a bright future in this community. One of the ways we know that is a young activist who attends my alma mater, PS 41. A great speaker, an actress, a community activist, Ms. Antonia Markowitz.
Hi. They have promised us an urgent care center. Anyone with a working dictionary can translate that as slow taxi service. Do they think that we are going to give up because it's been a year? No! What do we need? A hospital! When do we need it? Now! All of you are from New York. All of you know that taxis are not only expensive, they find out occasionally ways to cheat you. That's exactly what these fools are doing.
I just want to say one more thing in solidarity and thought for one of our core coalition members, Elizabeth Adams. Elizabeth was lucky enough to suffer an unfortunate stroke at her place of work because she wasn't in her home area of the West Village, but instead she was in Brooklyn and was able to be rushed to appropriate medical services. And she worked so hard to try to be able to be here today. She hasn't been able to get out of rehab yet, but she's in our hearts and our minds. And we're thinking about her in every other story, every other anecdotal story that we hear about people who aren't getting access to the type of health care that they deserve. So we're thinking about Elizabeth, and she'll be at our next rally.
Can we get another round of applause for Antonia Markowitz, please? They teach them good at 41, huh? Our next speaker is also a person I'm proud to call my friend, another longtime community activist, a woman who is president of the Friends of NoHo, president of the Friends of NoHo, president of my political club, the Downtown Independent Democrats, a leader in our community, Ms. Jeannie Wilkie.
Hi, that young lady is a hard act to follow, so I give her my accolades. I'm president of a political. I'm president of a political organization. We get people to vote. We look at the numbers downtown. We look to get services in the area where we have population increases. We work to get officials elected and de-elected. Couple of things. The 10-year census, the south of Canal Street, we have had an increase of 91% in residential population. 91%, I am not kidding you. On top of that, think about this. The 9/11 Memorial will open in September. We are going to have millions of visitors to our neighborhood. This is not just about residents and the care. This is about the people who come into our area, the millions of tourists. We've seen how many double-decker buses go by while we have been standing here. In addition to that, we don't even have a plan where these buses are going to park that are going to be visiting the World Trade Center Memorial. We are going to have one huge traffic jam. We already know we have one now. We are going to have a major sanitation garage at the end of Spring Street, which is going to be built starting in about a year to 18 months. We're going to have big trucks going by all the time. We're adding to this mix. We have, if you stop by any firehouse, start talking to the guy, walk your dog, step in and say, ask them off the record what the problems were when St. Vincent's closed. They will tell you honestly and openly, we have a big problem. The statistics can get skewed however the officials like it. We know you've got Houston Street they're trying to get across. We've got subway construction, water tunnel construction. All these things make us look and make somebody like me and my group look at this and say, we know we need the service. We know that a $25 million study to see if we need a new hospital, we know it is so obvious. So all I can say is, as president of a political organization that gets officials elected or not elected, we ask our officials to listen to us, and we will support the coalition to demand a new hospital. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. We're trying to move things along. Our next speaker is another founding member of the Coalition for a New Village Hospital, a longtime village resident and activist, a former patient here at St. Vincent's, the founder of one of our partner organizations, Hands Off St. Vincent's. I'm very pleased to introduce to you Timothy Lunsford.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. What do we need? When do we need it? I'm going to tell you a story about myself and another person that I don't know. A tale of two lives in New York City. Beth Israel is 1.5 miles away from Morton Street. A new hospital at this location is only a half mile from Morton Street. On Morton Street and the West Side Highway in Greenwich Village, a young 21-year-old man, the TV media described him with no name. He was hit by a West Side truck driver making a right turn onto Morton Street, leaving him to die on the street at 5:18 a.m. on October 10th, 2010. That's 10-10-10. The driver of the small white truck has not been located yet by NYPD detectives. His name was Dario DeGino. Dario lived in Belleville, New Jersey, a 21-year-old man, a son, a brother, a visitor to New York, a tourist, a friend, an employee. I found his name in research on this so we could not forget that St. Vincent's closure number of fatalities have the names of individuals attached to them. We don't need to know that somebody died on Morton Street. Dario DeGino died on Morton Street. And he died because he didn't make it to the hospital. They tried to get him to Beth Israel, and he died on the way. It was too far away. His parents, Mr. and Miss Angelo DeGino and his sister Gazelle, asked if you have any information on the white truck to please contact the NYPD. On March 22nd, 2011, I had an allergy asthma attack and I used an EpiPen, the thing you shoot into your thigh. On March 24th, 2 days later at noon, as I was walking on the streets of Greenwich Village, I passed out. I passed out another time at home. I couldn't figure out what it was, but it didn't make a big deal about it, and I just continued. But I was going to a Community Board 2 meeting about St. Vincent's, where I always make a statement every meeting they have, because they didn't do anything but pass the buck to the needs assessment, who did nothing to bring a hospital back to Greenwich Village. After a little while, I was feeling much worse, and I decided to leave the meeting. I didn't understand what was happening to me, and as I was leaving, I saw some of my friends in the coalition and Hands Off St. Vincent's, and they told me that I didn't look good and I should be in the hospital to get it checked out. They guided me downstairs and commandeered a cab, and I can tell you I wasn't clear on what was happening. But I arrived at Beth Israel Emergency Room 33 minutes later from Canal and 6th Avenue. That's a 21-minute walk, but it took us 33 minutes to get there by cab. I had low blood pressure. It's normally high blood pressure, and I can take it with controlled medicines, but a combination of the medicine and a reaction to the new medicine caused my blood pressure to drop. It took 12 hours to get my pressure stabilized, and I was released home because my partner is a registered nurse. My pressure at home was not back to normal for a few days, but I called my Beth Israel cardiologist the day after because I was told by the emergency room to see your doctor in 2 or 3 days because of an arrhythmia I have. Remember that I was on this appointment on October 25th, the day after my ER visit, and they told me they had no appointments until June 29th. A written order from the BIER said I had to see my cardiologist in 2 to 3 days. I had to write the president of Beth Israel Hospital to see my cardiologist just last week. Had I gone home that Thursday night and not listened to my friends, I would have been on Charles Street, and I might not have made it to the hospital because my blood pressure dropped down to life-threatening levels about an hour after I got to the hospital. The trip to Beth Israel is 6 times what it would take me to get here. I think of a young man lying on Morton Street often in this fight for a new hospital. Did he know he was not near an emergency room to help him when he got hit? Do you know 5 people who don't know they are too far from an emergency room at a real hospital living on the west side? You've got to let them know. Will you let them know? Did the delay of the dispatch contribute to this man's demise? It was the ambulance that didn't get there within 15 minutes that Dario died in. Does Dario's family know that a corrupt management drove one of the best hospitals for trauma into the ground? Can you let the Dario family now know, D'Angelo family know, that we don't have a hospital that could have taken care of Dario because of the closure of St. Vincent's? Over 200 service agencies are gone. Where did these services pick up in the community? Why did our elected officials who chair health committees in New York State Senate and Assembly not know about the closure or do anything to stop the closure or get us a new hospital? Why are our U.S. Congress and Senate members not doing anything to bring back a hospital to this site? And how could a federal judge be so immoral in her decision to give St. Vincent's to the Rudin family for 360 luxury apartments? Tom Duane and Brad Holloman both told me personally in this fight for a new hospital that they were going to keep tabs on the illness and deaths because of the St. Vincent's closure. And they lied. They lied. Did they put Dario D'Agino, a young man, on their death list? Where are these closed St. Vincent statistics, Tom and Brad? How many other New Yorkers are lost in the sidewalk cracks by this? I'm asking directly today to speak with Bill Rudin. I want to ask him to reconsider and give New York City a 200-bed hospital, ER and Trauma 1, not an urgent care center called a standalone room. When can we meet with Bill Rudin? It's a matter of life and death. How many will die like the young man called Dario DeGino? We want a hospital, emergency room, and Trauma 1, nothing less, no luxury apartments.
Thank you, Timothy. Our next speaker is somebody who knows about struggling for justice in this community, across New York State, and more. Somebody that's been a great help to the coalition, a great help to this community, and one of New York State's leading activists, the president of Marriage Equality New York, Ms. Kathy Marino-Thomas.
Good afternoon. How are you? I wanted to come and speak to you today, not only as the president of Marriage Equality New York, of course, but as a mother of a fifth grader here in this area, who hopes every single day that my daughter doesn't fall down and need stitches somewhere because, you know, miles and miles and miles away. So I also want to talk to you briefly about being a grassroots activist and about remembering that our elected officials work for us. Call them, insist on a hospital. I'm not going to settle for a civil union. I'm not going to be a second-class citizen, and you should not be a second-class citizen and settle for this what do they call it? An emergency trauma care center? No, hospital. Marriage equality? Hospital. Marriage equality for me? Hospital for you. So please don't forget, call them, be a pain. They work for you. Don't forget, I call my senator daily, and you should call yours and go and visit them. So thank you very much. Don't forget, keep up the good work, and I know that we'll succeed here. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Marino-Thomas with Marriage Equality New York. Thank you so much. People mentioned earlier that there's been difficulty with getting this story straight. Getting the story straight and getting our word out in the press. One newspaper organization where that is certainly not true is West Village's own Westview newspaper. I have here the editor of Westview, Mr. George Kapsis.
I thank you for that. The question that keeps coming up is, can we do anything? We have the main issue. There are copies over there, and if you can, go by and pick some up. And if there are not enough, you could come by 69 Charles Street, and we have piles of them in the vestibule. Now, I have been in this business almost 50 years. And we began to fight for a hospital in our newspaper. The articles by Dr. Kaufman have been brilliant. He's not only extremely knowledgeable about medicine, but he's also knowledgeable about emergency care. But he's also a very good writer. So we have been very fortunate in documenting this entire episode through the words of people who are involved in the hospital and in the debacle of the hospital. Now, everybody is tired. You're standing out in the sun a long time, and I'm going to try to make it short. I went down on April the 7th to the U.S. Bankruptcy Court, and I was sitting in a row with the North Shore Long Island Hospital team. They had the president, they had several lawyers, they had the vice president, they had the director of public relations. In front of them was Bill Rudin with his wife, with his daughter and his son, fourth generation. They were waiting, fully expectant that they were going to get 11 buildings for $260 million. That's a real bargain. Before this happened, I warned the PR director of North Shore, you know, this is the West Village. They threw $1 billion back into the face of Washington. They said, we don't want Westway. I said, you may win in court, but you may not win in the public opinion. I think they heard me. When I got back from bankruptcy court, I was drained. I had been haranguing the president of North Shore. I had introduced myself to Bill Rudin. He happens to live not too far from me out in the Hamptons. And I felt so drained. And my wife said, did you see the morning mail? And she handed me a 6-panel brochure from something called the West Side Healthcare Coalition. And I said, what is this? And then I realized they were trading on the coalition that Dr. Kaufman and Yetta have worked on for more than a year. And they were trading even on my name, Westview, West Side Healthcare Coalition. At the end of this 6-page diatribe, which was trying to indicate that they were going to create an emergency room in that decaying mausoleum, it offered a reply card. And you had one vote. Yes, I want an urgent care department. I was so outraged, I went down to the address, 594 Broadway. And I mounted the stairs to the 5th floor, and I found my way through the hall, and I found room 509. And guess what it was? DSK Knickerbocker Public Relations. The very firm that had been retained by Bloomberg in the last election because his image had waned. He paid them $16.5 million. And what did they do? They put out surveys. In the surveys, it indicated all the good things that Bloomberg did. Now, when I walked in, I was not welcome. And there was the managing director, Stefan Friedman. And I said to him, how long have you been employed by Rudin? 6 months. This campaign has been going on for 6 months to get your opinion, to get you to accept that, to make you believe that's all you're going to possibly get. Now there is something you have to know. During the 8 months of negotiation with the creditors, one of which was GE Capital, who paid not 1 penny of income tax, there was another developer, unnamed. Yetta kept asking who that developer was. We don't know to this day. But Rudin wanted to invest $260 million, but under the condition he got city approval. All the approvals he needed. That was the only condition that he would invest that $260 million. But the other investor said, no, I'll agree to put up to $260 million whether I get okay from the city or not. So Rudin had to agree. Now understand, Mr. Rudin does not write out a check for $260 million. He has to borrow it. And the longer you delay him, the more lawsuits that Yetta comes up with. He is hurting in the pocket. And this whole deal is not about getting you medical services. It's about the pocket. He has to take this hospital because he can carve out more luxury condominiums in this building than he can in that building. So, don't give up. Be angry. Keep fighting, and we will fight with you.
A little bit more, okay. Ready? This is called Waiting It Out. A title that Yetta actually came up with, so we should give her a round of applause for that good title. All right. Here lies a century of lullabies, from Jack and Jill to Humpty Dumpty, shattered and all. God knows the wind can blow, boughs can break, a cradle can fall. Ooh. But I've got a little girl who can barely stand. I offer her nursery rhymes and a mother's hand and a view of the cradle next door becoming a mall. See, you don't understand. To cross the whole land is a long way to crawl. So don't you try to tell me. I'll just have to learn how to wait this out. My baby is crying right now. But fine, we'll crawl to the east. I'll tell her we're climbing a beanstalk to a giant's feast, where there's candy and cots to share, where there's blankets to spare, where there's help, 'cause we need help. Where they tell us we'll just have to wait this out. But my baby's crying right now, right now, right now. So don't you tell us we just have to wait this out. I'm not gonna wait this out, wait this out. My baby's dying. And here lies a legacy of lullabies, where anyone who falls can rise, can rise, can rise, can rise, can rise. So maybe a cradle is able to rise too. Thank you all.
Thank you, Carolyn Murphy. I just want to check and make sure, has everyone signed the petition to Attorney General Schneiderman yet? People going around with clipboards, you should sign it. And if you haven't signed up to be a member of the coalition, there's people at tables here, fantastic volunteers who are taking those names if you haven't signed up already as a member. Somebody else who knows about activism and petitioning in the west side of Manhattan is a longtime leader, Mr. Gene Glaberman.
Thanks for coming out, everybody. It's a terrific turnout. My name is Gene Glaberman, and I'm the president of the Chelsea Midtown Democratic Club, the club of Bayard Rustin and Dan Carpenter. And I'm a very proud, and we are a very proud member of this coalition for a new village hospital. We should congratulate the coalition for what it's been doing all along, and especially Yetta, who has been an extraordinary leader in this fight. I'll speak very briefly. We've really recently had some bad news and some good news. First, the bad news. We had a couple of court decisions that have given the green light to the Rudin North Shore LIJ plan for a, quote, comprehensive care center. You've heard a lot about that today. A care center that is unable to handle heart attacks, acute strokes, trauma, septic shock, respiratory failure, and other emergency situations. These are the very reasons that people go to emergency rooms, and they don't take care of that. I live in Chelsea in the Penn South Co-op, along with several thousand cooperators whose average age is 75, suffering from a heart attack or a stroke. None of them can afford it's great weather. None of them can afford comprehensive care center. To be told, oh, no, we don't handle that. It'll take you another 20, 30, 45 minutes across town to reach the nearest full-service hospital. The nearest one is 4 miles away. Lots of luck. It's clear that this situation, where every minute counts, some patients are not going to make it. And others may survive, but at the loss of brain cell or heart muscle. And this is not only true of Chelsea, it's true of the whole West Side, downtown West Side community. The good news is that this is not a done deal. The court decisions are being appealed. The whole process will still require city and state approval. There will be committee hearings at the community board, city planning, city council, and also at the state level. We will be there in the hundreds with our bodies, with our signs, with our testimony, and ultimately with our votes. Will you be there? We will be there. And in relation to our votes, we are going to remember, after this is over, who is on our side, who is for a hospital, and who is not. The Coalition for a New Village Hospital wants the city and this community to know that we will not give up, we will not give in, we will not give out until we have a full-service hospital with a level 1 trauma emergency room. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gene Glaberman. I just want to quickly, we're running out of time here, so we just got a couple more speakers. But I want to quickly recognize some folks that are here. Bill de Blasio's office did send a representative. We want to thank him. I also want to thank Local 375 of DC 37 for showing up. And all of us here, of course, all of our activists, everyone in the coalition. Another great organizer. 1199 set a wreath to commemorate the closing of the hospital. So they could be more active. There's other folks we want to recognize. Our next speaker is the president of Democracy for New York City, a fantastic youth activist group or activist group in the Democratic Party in New York, and a friend of mine, a leader, Mr. Josh Silverstein.
Thank you, Paul. Just want everybody to know that this is not a done deal. This is not done, and I'll tell you why. Because the closing of St. Vincent's is unjust, and you've heard the facts and figures today, but we need to be in the solution here, and we need to contact our representatives. We need to tell them it's not a done deal. We need to make sure that everybody in the community knows that we can get this done. And I just want to leave you with one example. Everybody thought Kathy Black would be chancellor for the next few years. Where is she now? Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. I just want to recognize someone else who's here every single day handing out flyers. Douglas Esposito, right over here, in the striped shirt, who you see every time you pass by this building. I want to thank him for coming, for everything he does. Let's see, sorry. We had, by the way, a fantastic turnout today. We had over 500 people show up to demand a hospital for our community. We're going to be closing out shortly. First, I want you to hear from an activist at Visiting Neighbors, a health activist in this community, Steve Gould.
Thank you. I'll make this short because we'll all have to go to see Dr. Kaufman for dehydration and some sunstroke if we stay out here much longer. But I just wanted to point up a couple of facts. Number one, my charity for whom I do work serves and has served for 40 years senior citizens. And we used to be able to get the seniors from Chelsea and South Village and West Village over to the O'Toole or here to see their doctors quickly. Volunteers now, it takes them hours to get up either to Roosevelt or Beth Israel. Now, you heard a lot of facts. The important thing is get one of these orange sheets. On the back, the coalition has laid out some very, very positive things to do. Dr. Kaufman laid out something that is phenomenal dealing with the hospital. Now, nobody can say that we're just nice community activists, because you heard people from downtown Democrats, you heard people from the Upper West Side, the Penn South area. So this is the whole West Side. And don't give up faith. As a matter of fact, this was many years ago. It was when probably my partner who's here right now, Chuck and I had a movie theater in Chelsea called the Elgin. And we were one of the places that, as young, naive kids, they used as a signing place to go against Westway. And everybody said, do you guys like down there at Westway now, all of that grass and everything? Do you like that? All right. Well, it can be done. We can win this because everybody said that Westway was a done deal. And thanks to the integrity and the hard work of everybody, and one judge that stood up and said, no, 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 we can't do this, we now have that park. if all of us go out and make a promise today to tell 5 more people and think about this in a positive fashion, spread the word, speak to Dr. Kaufman's alternative. You know, the Rudin family can't say that we're just saying no, no, no to everything. So please, spread the word, think positive, take an orange sheet and go out there and get things done in a positive fashion. Thank you, and be well, and go get some water.
He is a longtime activist in this community, the president of the Fulton Houses Tenant Association, a leader, Miguel Acevedo.
Thank you, Coalition, for having me out here. Thanks, all of you, for being out here on such a great Saturday. You know, the sad thing about this, Dr. Kaufman hit it right on the head. Why not close Lenox Hill up on the east side and bring it over here? They have the money. It's sad because they're now investing into making a profit. Health reform should be an investment to save lives, but they're forgetting to save our lives here in the village. We're not going to give up. Like Yogi Berra once said, I'm not leaving till the fat lady sings. And she ain't singing until the hospital opens in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you, Miguel. Okay, we're about to introduce our last speaker, but I just want everyone to know we've talked a lot about this issue. Everyone agrees that this is not a done deal, this Rudin plan. We're going to demand that for our participation, what do we demand? That's right. Now, how do we do that? It's a couple of things we can do. Number one, everyone has signed the petition to Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, have they not? People can take some extra copies and bring them to their buildings and get their friends. There's an address to send it to. You can email us at demandahospital@gmail.com. You should sign up with the coalition. Also, there's folks with clipboards will also have sign up so you can keep informed. And you'll have to be aware this process, when they want to build their condominiums or whatever, they're going to have to go through the Uniform Land Use Review process. Is that right? ULURP process. That's going to go through the community board. It's going to go through the city council. It's going to go through the mayor's office. We are going to have a voice in that process. This is not a done deal.
A question?
Okay. Yes. Listen, nobody's saying this is going to be easy, but we can do this. This community is strong. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Catherine Andrade, and from the Hudson Guild, which has hosted so many of our events, has been such an important part of this community and this coalition. I'm thrilled to have Catherine Andrade here.
Okay, thank you very much. Where are the politicians from this district? We must remember elections are coming and they're going to be knocking on our doors. And remember, we're going to kick them out. Las elecciones vienen y como lo ven, los políticos están ausentes de esta manifestación de protesta que tenemos. No es justo, pero nosotros el día de las elecciones nos encontraremos con ellos y les vamos a dar una patada fuera de donde no corresponden. Es increíble la insensibilidad de estos políticos hacia una comunidad del oeste de Manhattan que solamente tiene un hospital o tenía un hospital. Un año ha pasado y no han hecho absolutamente nada. Absolutamente nada para que se reabra este hospital. Nosotros estamos dispuestos a continuar luchando porque es lo único que nos queda. Y vamos a continuar hasta que esta jornada de lucha termine victoriosamente para nosotros. No olvidemos que la lucha continúa. The fight goes on. También me preocupa no ver aquí a los líderes de la 1199. ¿Dónde están los delegados de este hospital que era sindicalizado por 1199? Where are they? Me preocupa porque verdaderamente nos dejan quedar muy mal el sindicato, la industria queda muy mal. La representación queda muy mal, especialmente en estos momentos en que se atacan a los sindicatos. Esto da lugar para poner el nombre de los sindicalistas por el suelo. También ellos tendrán elecciones un día y les vamos a dar una buena patada, ustedes saben dónde, para ver si así reaccionas en favor de esta comunidad que necesita el apoyo hoy más que nunca para que se reabra este hospital. Estoy segura que las organizaciones que han llamado a esta demostración vuelvan a tocar base con nosotros. Por favor, digamos presente en la lucha, porque la única forma de ganar la lucha es diciendo presente, viniendo aquí por cientos, tocando la puerta de nuestros vecinos para que vengan a luchar con nosotros. Sí se puede. Yes, it can be done. Sí se puede. Sí se puede. Sí se puede. Hasta la victoria siempre. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. ¿Qué necesitamos? ¿Cuándo? What do we need? When do we want it? Okay, so this was a fantastic event today. This is part of this fight. We have sent a loud message to the Rudins, to the developers, to the politicians that this is not a done deal. I want to thank the 6th Precinct, the police department who has been so fantastic, was so helpful from the setup, with the permit, with everything. I want to thank all of the volunteers who put this together at our tables. Angela, Susan Howard, I see down here. I want to thank, most of all, the Coalition for a New Village Hospital for continuing this fight, for letting people know that this is not a done deal. Thank you so much. We will be and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you at our next rallies, which you will hear about at the Euler process, and when we have the ribbon cutting for the brand new hospital on this site. Thank you very much. We're being asked where, if people want to donate or email to get involved, go to demandahospital.blogspot.com. Or you can sign up here on the corners. There's papers on the corners to sign up. I want to thank Carolyn Murphy for singing. These flyers, these have next steps, where you can contact us, how you can be involved. Thank you so much. Demand a hospital.
Well, that's the plan. That's what we're fighting.
We will not bow down to.
Tell us about Ed.
Well, I sent an email to the PR vice president of the North Shore Hospital suggesting that they made a faux pas in sending out this phony brochure and reply card. And he shot back to me a endorsement of the Rudin North Shore plan signed by Ed Koch as the chairman of the group that is the West Side Healthcare Coalition. And I was quite shocked at that. And Henry Stern, who was one of our writers, former park commissioners, good friend of Koch, and we chatted on the phone, and he told me that Ed Koch lives at Avenue, which happens to be a building that was built and is currently managed by the Rudin Corporation. As a matter of fact, the Rudin Corporation is very good to ex-mayors. Both Dinkins and Lindsay lived in Rudin buildings in the past. We sent a bunch of questions to Koch. Koch insisted that he was not paid. But there's one other little touch. The senior vice president of the Rudin Corporation is a man by the name of John J. Gilbert III. Mr. Gilbert started his political life working for Ed Koch. And it was Ed Koch, it was Gilbert who went to Koch and offered to Koch that hundreds, thousands of people had responded to the website of the West Side Healthcare Coalition, phony organization, which didn't exist hours before he went to Koch. And on the basis of that, and the fact that he had some friendship for Gilbert, I assume, he signed off as chairman of that phony committee. The problem is we are one small neighborhood newspaper. We print 20,000 copies. So they are an extremely powerful organization with unlimited monies. They have, it's not just the $260 million they have riding on this investment. 300 luxury apartments in this area should net them very close to $1 billion. So this is an incredibly important development for the Rudin Corporation. So a handful of people in the West Village, they see us as troublemakers, malcontents, and they really believe they have the truth on their side. Right now, to build a new hospital, like the hospital that they proposed on the old Tool site, would cost $800 million. That's a 400-bed hospital. But it would cost only a fraction of that to reopen the Coleman and Link building. Perhaps it would cost $10 million, maybe $20 million. But the important thing is we could have a hospital back in a matter of months. It's even going to take 2 years to convert the O'Toole Center into an walk-in emergency facility. So it makes no sense at all. It makes no logic at all. So the battle is going to be really fought in the media, because we have to get to the Times, we have to get to the Post, we have to get to the networks, and that will take time. What we have going in our favor is the fact time is not a friend of a developer, because time is money. Even St. Vincent's, which still owns this property, is paying $1.2 million every single month on the debt that had accumulated. So they want to get rid of it. They want Rudin to step in. Rudin has to sign a check for $45 million to start the takeover now that he has won in the bankruptcy court. If he finds that there is really serious opposition on the part of the community. And that opposition is manifesting itself in publicity, in the media, and lawsuits, new lawsuits. One of the reasons they said they didn't want to build the hospital on the old Tool site, which was the original plan after the first bankruptcy, was that local community filed a lawsuit against them. But of course they were using that to support the final decision of the bankruptcy court. They feel now they have a done deal and the only job left is to pay a powerful, ruthless public relations firm to garner public opinion so they can turn to the community, they can turn to the Department of Health in New York State and say, see, we have the community behind us. They want a walk-in emergency center.
In terms of the $250 million that was ultimately paid by the Rudins, considering the property, could that be considered a steal of the century?
Well, I'll give you an example. The townhouse next to mine on Charles Street is 20 feet wide and 55 feet deep, and a billionaire paid $8.25 million for it and invested $4.5 million to renovate it. If somebody will spend $8.25 million for 20 by 55 feet, 4-story brownstone, think what you would pay to be able to build 300 luxury condominiums. I think it's $1 billion deal. When the first bankruptcy occurred, there were a number of hospitals that were still fairly financially strong that were interested in taking over St. Vincent's. This building is only 25 years old, and it's physically a very good plan. Mount Sinai was the key, and most people in the medical industry were convinced that Mount Sinai was going to get it. What I discovered, to my utter shock and surprise, is that Medicare is dispensed at a different rate depending upon the hospital. And Mount Sinai was enjoying a very favorable rate from Medicare. So when Mount Sinai had finally made the decision to take over St. Vincent's, they went to Commissioner Daines and said, okay, we're going to take it over, but we want to be sure that we get the same reimbursement rate on Medicare that we're enjoying at the present time. And Daines called him up and said, no. And the entire deal collapsed in a matter of minutes. After that, actually North Shore also tried to take over, but St. Vincent's insisted that they be responsible for the debt. And North Shore has been very, very successful in acquiring hospitals by not paying any money for them, but by taking them over because they are in financial difficulty and managerial difficulty. North Shore is the richest hospital in the New York metropolitan area, has 9,000 doctors, 10,000 nurses. It made over $200 million in surplus. They don't call it profit, but it is a $4.5 billion corporation. It's the second richest non-sectarian hospital in the United States. They have been coveting a location in the Lower West Side for years. When the deal to acquire St. Vincent's did not go through, they approached the Department of Health and said, they were willing to create a urgent care center, but they wanted the state to put up some money. The state put out an RFP, request for proposal, for $14.5 million. And North Shore won it. But when they came to the community, and then now with this $14.5 million, the community says, no, we don't want an urgent care center. We want an emergency room.
Any idea why Danes denied Mount Sinai?
I have no idea. And Koch actually, in an email we got yesterday, implied that the fix was in. I haven't been able to talk to him about that. But you have to understand that there is just a handful of very powerful people who represent the hospitals who really, in effect, guiding, making policy for the Department of Health. North Shore Hospital has had many feuds with many different small hospitals that they have acquired. I read of one every couple of weeks. They have always been able to win because they have a tremendous amount of money on their side, because the community is weak. But I think, given the fact that this community threw back literally billions of dollars to Washington and fought westward for 12 years, this community is different. This community may be the community that demonstrates you can't buy the truth.
Well, I feel really happy at the turnout today. It was a beautiful crowd of folks. And so that's a really positive thing. But at the same time, it's really disappointing that still after a year, there's no hospital, there's no nothing in terms of health care for our community. And still the elected officials are deafeningly silent. You know, it was great to hear that a representative from Bill de Blasio's office came out to support us today. And Scott Stringer has been meeting with us and trying to work with us. But I feel like it can't be this one politician over here and this one politician over there. It has to be an institutional awareness that, you know, everybody deserves health care.
We're hearing reports that Ed Koch has been recruited by the Rudens. Any comment about that?
Well, you know, I think what you're talking about is that big astroturfing story that came out where the Rudens or some entity made up the name of a fake community organization to sound like the Coalition for a New Village Hospital. I don't remember the exact name, but something like a Coalition for Healthcare or something like this. It's a shady technique called astroturfing, where they pretend they use, you know, lots of money to create slick literature to make it look like it's a community organization that is supporting this urgent care center, when in fact the community overwhelmingly is not supporting the urgent care center and has consistently come out again and again and again to say we want a hospital and we're only going to settle for a hospital. The coalition's response was to put together a survey which we distributed to hundreds and hundreds of residents in the area, and 97% of the residents rejected the Rudin plan and said that they want a hospital and that they don't want a standalone emergency room.
Well, what do you think about just the fact that the Rudens would recruit someone as visible and as symbolic of New York as Ed Koch?
I mean, they're putting a lot of effort into defrauding the people of the Lower West Side of Manhattan. If they put that same energy and same effort, and I assume that they had to pay Mr. Koch money to do this, they could use those same resources to work with the community to come up with a reasonable solution where everybody is happy and where the community gets a hospital.
Considering what the Rudens paid for this property and the location of this property, could this be qualified as a steal of a very young century?
Oh, it is a steal for sure. By our estimations, it's 10 cents to the dollar that they're paying for this. I mean, they've been able to acquire 8 massive buildings for assumedly $260 million. Now, we don't even know if they're going to pay all of that money outright or what the deal is. But that is by no means what the market value of this property, this incredibly prime real estate property is here in the West Village in Manhattan.
And lastly, what's the alternative plan? People have been suggesting that they build the condos across the street over there, that white building, go to a building. What is your plan?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a number of alternative plans put forward. There is no question that there are options and that there are plans. The problem is not that the community doesn't have an alternative plan. The problem is that there's not the political will to make any of these plans come into fruition. The first plan was to have Mount Sinai come in and take over the hospital. Mount Sinai was totally willing and prepared to do that, but they wouldn't allow that to happen. Another plan was to allow one of the hospitals in the area to come forward and take over the operations. There was a proposal that was put forward in bankruptcy court to purchase the property for more money than the Rudins were willing to pay for it, and that would restore a hospital. They didn't accept that plan. There's an option where they could renovate the O'Toole building. They've gotten $125 million and the building for free to put an urgent care center there. For same or similar monies, they could put a hospital there.
They told me that at Public School 12. It would only cost $200 million to put a 200-bed hospital in St. Vincent. Last Tuesday, 3 artists, myself, Timothy Lunsford, Yvette Katz-Stark, and Sylvia Stanza, all took the time out to make information flyers and art about the upcoming rally today, to let passersby on Greenwich Street know that there was a rally today at 2 o'clock for a new hospital. This week on Greenwich Street, Nikki Perry, that owns Sympathy and Tea, had a huge gathering of British on the street for the royal wedding. We thought it would be a great way to let tourists know we don't have a hospital and we're working to get a hospital. We put on the windows different signs, and particularly on this window here, we had a whole list of artists that had lived in the West Village, and we had a sign on it that said they lived in the village and had access to St. Vincent's, but here and now our visitors and residents don't have access to the hospital. We had other signs on here about losing the deal, and the deal is not a done job. Then we went over to this window here, and we had 2 big posters that told about the Rudin plan for a new emergency room. They were up here.
Where are they now?
It looks like sometime late last night somebody entered the premises and removed all of our posters and took them down. What the posters you see on the window now were placed up today, because these windows, you can see the tape. You can see how we had posters in all the windows. We used brown tape and clear tape. In this window here, Sylvia had done a whole poster with construction paper and talked about the different parts of the hospital gone and how we needed a new hospital. It was done very mosaically, whatever. On this side over here, I had put the story that was published in the New York Times about the last birth and how somebody had stolen 2 bags of diapers as an employee of St. Vincent's to give to the family when they rushed the birth because of the closure of the hospital. And that's on the NewYorkTimes.com website. And I had put that there as something for people to read, to know that we're not just talking about a hospital, but we're talking about the loss of a midwife center, an AIDS center, a cancer center, a sports medicine center. There were 200 different agencies lost, and we tried to put that on this window. On the window around the corner here, Angela Jones had made a huge poster that said, we need a hospital. You see the poster on the floor here. It's been ripped. It's not only been torn down, but it's been ripped.
So did the owners of the
We
establishment?
don't know. We don't know. It's the former Artie Pasta restaurant. It's an empty, and we had permission to enter the premises. And the fact is, we don't know who had access to take this stuff down.
It's all on the floor, actually. You can see everything over here. Okay. Everything that's been ripped is on the floor.
This box here was a young child made some posters about her need for a hospital, and we had children's art in the window.
So what's that telling you?
It's telling us that there is an effort to quash the Coalition for a New Village Hospital's efforts to raise awareness in the community we need a hospital and have the community respond, yes, we need a hospital.
I attended the rally today, the 1 Year Without a Hospital rally, and I actually left very angry. A while ago, I was part of a group that was doing some direct action, is still doing direct action, civil disobedience, to try to raise the stakes and bring awareness to the fact that now it's been a year without a hospital. And what was really frustrating for me is that as people were getting on the stage and speaking, very eloquently speaking about the different facts and figures and, a lot of detailed information about what's happened in the past year, all I could think of was, that's not what these people need to hear right now. We all get it. We're talking to ourselves. What people need is they need to be doing more of the direct action work. They need to be getting beyond flyering and petition gathering, and they need to be going to jail for justice. I mean, it's that simple. It's always been that simple. And I started getting very angry. I just don't understand why that's not the leading message here anymore. I mean, I feel like we're going to be here another 6 months and a year continuing to say the same thing until people wake up.
Well, it begs the question, though. Why did you leave the group that you were participating in?
Because as I was saying this, even quietly to some people around me, and then loudly as I got more frustrated, I was getting shushed by the people that were there. They want to listen to the person on the stage. They want to listen to and I'm thinking, that's not a people's movement. A people's movement is people taking the power in their own hands and deciding what it is they want to do. Not being told, we need to all work together without any concrete, what does that look like? This is very serious. We don't have a hospital. People are dying. People are dying because that building is now going to become condos. And it will become condos if people don't sit in the middle of the street and stop it from happening. If they don't start finding ways to engage in nonviolent direct action on their own. And then the coalition has a very big responsibility to do what they can to promote those actions. If the coalition's going to shut out their own direct action voice, which they've done, they need to open those lines of communication back up with the people in the coalition who are interested in direct action and partner with the broader community who is interested in engaging in nonviolent direct action. Going to jail for justice, there's nothing wrong with that.
Well,
and it needs to happen.
You were part of Hands Off St. Vincent. Why did you leave Hands Off St. Vincent's if you feel that direct action is so important?
I had to start preparing for my next journey, which is to walk across the country for LGBT equality. And so I had overextended myself. I couldn't continue doing everything as well as finish my graduate degree as I prepare to walk 6,000 miles across the country. So it's not that I don't want to be doing the direct action work for St. Vincent's. I could only do so much. And I do everything I can to help train and educate people about direct action, and I'm always available for that. And I love being part of the movement of the people. But we've got to encourage people to get out and be active, and we have to provide the tools that they need to do it. It's been a long time since probably a lot of people have done any civil disobedience. And there's a lot of fears within this community of engaging in civil disobedience for this purpose. And that there never should be fears, because it's always effective. And it's very much needed right now. It's been a year without a hospital. Talk is cheap. It's done. Action is needed. And not just putting up posters and collecting petition signatures. There's a whole array of things, but people have to get outside their comfort zone and realize, you know what, they're gonna have to be a little unpopular. The coalition needs to support that, though. The coalition needs to be right behind the power of the people.
Have you approached the coalition with your concerns?
I have in the past, and I've been shut out. And so I'm not interested in that. And when Yetta came up to me today and wanted to give me a hug, I was like, Yetta, no. I said, I understand, there might be things that she can't say as an attorney. I understand that. I totally get that. But there has to be something more strategic at play here. If there isn't, this movement can't survive. It cannot grow unless there's a much more strategic, multi-prong approach put in play, where we're saying yes and, not no but, to people's ideas and action.
And you don't think that Hands Off can affect change independently?
Absolutely, they can, and they have. And there is no, and that absolutely, no group, whether it's Hands Off St. Vincent's or any other group, it needs to get a permission from any other group to do action. it is frustrating when you see different parts of a movement not working better together. I mean, they can work better together. They should be. They always should be.
So
There's a big divide here right now with this that I think the gap needs to be closed.
Well, as an advocate for civil disobedience, what's your message to the West Village community or to the New York City community?
Take the time, if you care enough about having a hospital and you want this back, take the time to be educated, pull people together, do social movement trainings, do civil disobedience trainings. There are plenty of people in the city, myself included, who do it for free because it's just the right thing to do. Not doing it to get anything out of it other than more people engaged in the movement, to overcome fears. I mean, I look at fears as paper-thin walls. Whatever people are afraid of, they can bust through that and turn around and realize that wasn't that big deal, but it wasn't that big of a deal at all. So get educated and start doing strategic action. Go after the targets who are the ones that are holding us back. Go after Quinn, go after Bloomberg, go after the bankruptcy attorney who's botched this whole thing. You know, take possession of this building. Do banner drops. Do all these things that have been done since the beginning of time. But you gotta care enough to do that.
What I really wanted to see today was a call to action. And Dr. Kaufman's dream of taking Lenox Hill down here is just that, if he doesn't give the audience, the community, the resources to do that. When he named off Bloomberg and Quinn, I would have loved to have seen that followed by their phone numbers and say call them every day until you get some change. Call the Department of Health. Don't just stand there. These rallies are meant for people to come together under one cause and then work. And I don't know if that's going to happen. I really don't. That's what I want. And I don't know why that wasn't done. You know, when they said that at 12 noon they were all meeting somewhere, I'm like, how come we didn't meet there at 12 noon? We should have showed up there, or we should just show up there tomorrow, wherever they are. You need to take this to them. And coming and seeing someone speak is thinking that you don't have the power to do it yourself. And it's like you're rallying behind this one person or this one group who's going to do everything for you, and that's not going to happen. The more that people speak out, the faster this will get done. And even if it doesn't get done, they harness their own voice, and that's the most important part.
So what resources can you recommend to the community to get educated about some of these tactics?
Well, I mean, what I was telling people who were signing up for the coalition list and the petition was to, reach out to your friends and call the Department of Health. Do all these things. You don't have to wait for anyone to do any of this. Read about civil disobedience. Read Bill Moyer's social movement plan. Read about what Dr. King. That's right here. Read what Dr. King has done. I mean, it doesn't take that much. I mean, when people get angry, when you go to the store, you go return something, they don't give your money back. They get angry about that, and they don't think they have a hospital. They know the power of their own voice. They can get things done. It's just, it is. I think we've lost the power of that. You know that you can do stuff. So just go do it. I don't understand that. And we were being shushed. And be quiet, I'm trying to listen. This is great to listen, to come together, but then you gotta do something.
Med van.
That's what I really hope. Oh, there's that med van.
What is that about?
A traveling hospital.
That's all that's left.
Yeah.
You were part of the group that participated in an action on St. Vincent's premises.
On February 8th, yeah.
Tell us about that, please.
Yeah, we 4 of us from Hedz-Up St. Vincent's did a sit-in there at the hospital, and we were charged with third-degree trespassing, and hopefully the message got out that the hospital's not going, we're not going away. That was the point of that.
And what's the status?
Well, we all know what the status is of our
ACDs.
Oh yeah, we have ACDs. Yeah.
Adjournment and contemplation of dismissal, which means they say keep your nose clean for 6 months, and everything's fine.
Right.
So
fine by me.
even in which doesn't mean that you can't go engage in civil disobedience again if you didn't want to.
Exactly.
I mean, if you wanted to or able to.
So I take it you do it again.
Deal.
Absolutely.
I've been arrested. I don't even know how many times. There's nothing wrong with this.
Absolutely.
And it's incredibly powerful. And the fears that people usually have about it are just they're ill-founded fears. Like Yana said, when you want something bad enough, it doesn't matter anymore. These fears they go away. So I'm believing that people really just don't want a hospital bad enough. They're willing to accept the status quo of slowly having public resources like a hospital taken away from them. Okay, then the people get what they deserve in that regard. I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing to look towards a future where we don't have public services like hospitals and schools. I mean, these are human rights we're talking about. You trample on my human rights, then I'm sorry, I'm gonna fight back, which is what I've done here with this. I've done everything I can at this point, leaving the city. I can still try to be engaged from afar, but it's hard. I mean, I'm here for 3 more weeks. I'll train. If anyone wants more civil disobedience training, I will give it as much as it needs to be taken. But people gotta want it.
Email, please.
People can email me on that, like Alan Bonville, ALAN, B as in boy, OUN, V as in Victor, ILLE, @gmail.com. We'll keep pulling people together. We'll do more trainings. I can do that right now. I can totally do that. I gave a guy your number today as we were raising a stink over there. They said, well, I don't know if it was his mother or somebody was with, said she's dying or something like that. And I was like, I said, well, you need to talk to Timothy Lunsford. He's the man that's doing the only direct action that I know of outside of rallies. Right. So you should be getting a call from this gentleman at some point. I mean, that's what's needed. These people care. They need to get trained. Let's do it.
There was a gentleman who signed the coalition petition. I told him, there are some actions coming up against some elected officials, including Christine Quinn, who everyone booed. And he said that he can't because she helped pass legislation regarding, his daughter's death. And I said, well, that doesn't mean anything. This is part of her job. One doesn't cancel out the other. Still hold her accountable. It doesn't mean, if your mother gives birth to you and still abuses you, does that mean that you can't hate her? No, it doesn't mean anything. You have to hold her accountable. It doesn't matter. And it means a lot more in the eyes of the public to say, hey, I know she did good for me, but you know what? She's not doing good over here. So, she needs to push harder for us. That's her job. So,
great. Any last words?
Keep fighting for your hospital.
It's your hospital. It's your job.
Don't ever stop.
To get involved, yeah.
And harness your voice.
Thank you.
Thank you.